cover the following topics: an overview of VOCA, your responsibilities as a grantee, reporting requirements, unallowable and allowable costs, as well as communicating with your program manager. So what is VOCA? The Victims of Crime Act, or as we refer to as VOCA, is a statute created by the federal government to help victims of crime through means other than the punishment of the criminal. These funds are paid for by the Crime Victims Fund, which was established by VOCA and is financed by fines and penalties paid by convicted federal offenders and not from tax dollars. VOCA focuses on the following priority areas: child abuse, domestic violence, sexual assault, and underserved. As you can see, there's quite a few different categories of underserved populations. So what do you need to do now that you have VOCA funding and how to be successful in your program? We believe that the most difficult part of your project should be the work outlined in your contract and not fulfilling administrative duties. As a result, we've identified 3 key items to help you fulfill your administrative obligations successfully. Reporting. So the first, we're going to review reporting. VOCA requires numerous reports due throughout the year based on the state fiscal year and the federal fiscal year. So if you look at the table below, it'll have different quarters listed with different start dates. Because VOCA-specific reports are based on the federal fiscal year, what VOCA calls a first quarter report covers the federal fiscal year of October 1st through December 31st. This throws us off, everyone off, including us at Ocjp, because they require individuals served in this quarter to be marked as new. This will be further explained in a training Ocjp will provide on VOCA reporting. And also keep in mind that your program manager will notify you when any reports are due. You can also access the VOCA reporting table through our website, and the link is listed. And so how you use this, you would follow the link, and then you're going to look at the Ocjp Grants Manual, select Fund Source chapters, find your fund source, and then at the bottom it'll have reporting requirements. Through this link, you'll be able to actually download a PDF version that you can save to your desktop, or you could print off for easy access. So reporting, while there's VOCA-specific reports, as an Ocjp grantee, you also have the following reports due. The equipment summary is due yearly, and this is for any program that has purchased equipment valued at $500 or more. The Policy 03 report is for nonprofits only, which is an expense and revenue report that's due quarterly. And then the program income reports are also due yearly. In addition, the VOCA grantee specific reports that we have listed at the table, there's a SAR, sub-grantee data report, a narrative report. The reports that have asterisks listed are project specific. So if you have a project that is VOCA funded domestic violence, then you would complete the domestic violence shelter output report. So next we're going to talk about invoicing. So in order to get reimbursed for your program expenses, you have to invoice the state. You will receive an invoice workbook that includes grant information from OBS, and while you're only required to invoice once a quarter, we really encourage programs to invoice monthly. And so how do you do this? So like I said, OBS will provide an invoice workbook, and then you will send that in to obs.grants@tn.gov. Please be sure to include your contract number. And if for some reason that you have not received your workbook within 60 days of your contract start date, you will need to email OBS as well as copy your program manager on the email so they're aware. And also keep in mind that once your invoices are sent into OBS, it can take up to 15 days. So when you get your workbook, what do you do now? When you open your invoice, you will see a spreadsheet with your grant budget pre-filled. And so I would highly recommend that you check this against the grant budget in your contract to make sure there are no errors. But as you'll see, the different line items listed should correspond with what is listed in your contract. So to submit your invoice, you're going to look at the tabs and you're going to select the last day of expenses. So for example, if you were just invoicing for the month of March, you would look at the tab labeled MAR for March, and that's the one you would select. But if you were invoicing January through March for the quarter, you would still select March. You will actually fill out the actual month's expenditures and include any unreimbursed funds that were expended during the period covered by the invoice. And then, we've said this before, once it's completed, you will email that to obf.grants@tn.gov. It can take up to 15 days. However, once you get your invoice back and you think, I didn't get the full amount, we only reimburse for the contract percentage regardless of whether the items were invoiced were designated as match or not. So what this means is that you have a match requirement of 20%, so you're going to be reimbursed for 80% of the expenses reflected on your invoice. So one of the things, some agencies believe that they don't need to invoice for match. However, this is incorrect, as you should invoice for your actual match expenditures, as you are reimbursed for the percentage of expenses. And if you would like to see how your a visual of how your contract percentage reimbursement rate, you can look at box B on your invoice, and it should say 80%. If you have questions about your invoices, you can contact your program manager, who can either help get you in touch with someone in our fiscal unit or with OBF. So next, we're going to talk about unallowable and allowable costs. So your grant may include general line items such as supplies or local travel. It is very important that these items expensed are allowable by the fund source. And you can actually go and see a copy of our manual where we have this, you would go back to the fund source chapter and it will say allowable and unallowable. And also our grant manual lists specific things that are allowable and unallowable. So if you have a question about any item, it is very important, and I encourage you to contact your program manager, and they can help talk you through the activity and if it's allowable or unallowable. And as a VOCA grantee, there are certain requirements that VOCA has, or certain allowable and unallowable expenses under the VOCA funding. So for example, lobbying, raising, research, investigation, prosecution, capital expenses, or compensation for victims are unallowable. Tennessee offers a victims comp program that is administered through our Treasury Department. Food is normally unallowable, and the exception for this would be shelter clients and emergency food assistance. And so they're VOCA allowables. So the items below are only allowable with approval from your program manager. For example, sensitive minor equipment such as computers, printers, that would need to have approval from your program manager, any capital purchase, and furniture. So if you have any questions about items in your budget that you're unsure of, or how if it could apply, I would highly recommend that you contact your program manager and really walk through that and discuss how it pertains to your project and how it's going to be used. And so lastly, one of the most important things that we'd like to stress is that OCJP wants to partner with our agencies to make sure everyone is successful and that the projects are being implemented the way that the agencies envisioned it, as well as OCJP. And so we believe that really how this works best is if we are communicating well with you, and then you communicate with your program manager. We believe that the most difficult part of your work should be the work outlined in your contract and not the administrative obligations. And so with that, we really urge you to reach out to your program manager if there's a question or a problem. It's much easier for us to figure it out on the front end rather than see it at the end of, see it when it comes up in a monitoring visit and there's a potential finding. And please feel comfortable to reach out to us with anything that you need or any questions. And finally, this was a required training, and so I really thank everyone for being able to take time out of their busy day. Please follow the steps below to receive credit for participating. You will follow the link as well as enter this password, and you'll fill out a form. This will let OCJP know that you've attended, and so you get credit for attending. And once again, thank you for your time.